Here I am in the background with a late evening live broadcast on Instagram that I am filming for YouTube. They just said something, the news anchor just said something, it made me click, it made something click in my head. It said fill in, or file in, fill in, file in, fill in, file in, fill in. Same letters, same order. People were supposed to be filled in about astronomy transits over the last 50 years. But while some children were being kidnapped and used and abused by immortal sex cult advocates that are linked, it seems to us, to the deep state and the coming new world order, World Economic Forum, it seems, people are getting duped with their cash in this modern world. To us that know about technology, poli-science, not the science they talk on the TV that's paid and owned by the media. Internet means internal net, your house's internet security, so you protect your little children from sexual predators. We wanted to be exonet for it to be called for the World Wide Web. But the sexual predators that wanted to sexually assault my little body since I was a toddler and keep it ongoing past 20 years broke into the house where all this technology was being tested in the late 80s or early 90s, duped my mom and dad, which were suffering from memory loss just like me, and it seems they captured and had my brother hostage for the last 30 plus years, 35 years easily, brainwashing my brother. At least since 97, it seems, our real cousins have never come to the house to celebrate Xmas in Malvern. And due to my head injury 96, what my memory showed me, I have not celebrated Christmas since 1997 or before, Common Era, with my family. Because the liberal government doesn't seem to show compassion for cannabis. They seem to more want to push opium and hard drugs on us that identify as Indigenous Americans, while at the same time trying to get us to identify as Africans by bringing people from Baratistan here that they tricked Queen Elizabeth with in the 70s with Pierre Elliott Trudeau and his English language, French language political trick done to Queen Elizabeth II between 1992 and 1984. 1982, us toddlers and family members were trying to make a great escape from immortal sex cult, and it seemed that after we came back from the Caribbean to try to escape him and try to recoup with our family, due to me being very sick, mal meaning sick, from mosquito bites, and my mom taking care of me and having memory loss, some creep crept back into the family. By December 1982, Common Era, almost 42 years ago, 42 full circles around our local sun.
Plus, why doctors say it is time to make sick notes a thing of the past.
It's actually a ridiculous use of a healthcare provider's time.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Yeah, I was going to talk about healthcare
joining
waste
us.
of time
We
and
begin
insurance
with the
waste of
bombshell
time. And it
findings
seems
of an exclusive
gonna
CBC
go on a
Radio
little bit
Canada
longer.
investigation. Canada Revenue Agency has failed to protect the privacy of tens of thousands of taxpayers as scammers made off with millions in public money. That is the big picture. And tonight.
Now I know out of this mouth, from the memories, the ghost had said financial, tax, CRA, that kind of thing, Canadian Revenue Agency. Tax should be filed on ledger, on paper, mailed in or brought into the tax office, that thing should not be tied to the World Wide Web, i.e. exonet, the net that goes outside of your domicile or place of operation or location. Therefore, tax documents would be space gapped and would never be available on the World Wide Web. That's the name they call it right now. Tax, your finances, and the fees you pay to your government, your local system, for maintenance of roads and systems and other things, emergency management. All that stuff that goes for your local community's governance should be space gapped, which means it shouldn't be on the World Wide Web at all, for no one to access. That was said out of my mouth. But I realized it's called the Ghost of America. Last year I got to this island and I had a strange dream memory out of my eyes, and I was recalling something like in the 70s, people were seeing something out of one person's eyes in the future. Some people that know what happened know that, okay, they were seeing the future through certain people's eyes at a certain time, no matter where they were. If they were looking at TV, they saw what was on TV. If they were looking at a freaking wall, they saw what was on the wall. If they were looking out into the horizon, they saw what was on the horizon. So I drove my car down this hill to what is a dock, and I was like, what the hell? We saw this out. A bunch of people saw this image or images in the past about someone doing something in the future or being caught in the future or trap or whatever, and they were seen through someone's eyes. And at that time, I was like, I drove down the hill. I was like, this was this before 1982. Whoever saw these things through some people's eyes, and it's happened to me again. Like 5 years ago, I slept, went to sleep, REM, rapid eye movement, saw something in my dream while I sleep in the night. 5 years later, it happened exactly like I saw it in this house on the other side. And more things have happened. Like I bought this recently. And I used it once or twice. And I'm wondering, did I design this thing with my cousin in the past and end up rebuying it in the present? This thing. If you would ask me 30 years ago, how old is it? Vapes. Smoking vapes, cannabis vapes. I wouldn't thought a brand new thing. This thing's at least existed in the 1970s common era. If it existed exactly like this one looks in my hand, that's one thing. But I bought this a few weeks ago, and then I opened it, and I put it on my vape, and I was like, I seen this before, and we some people were talking about like looking at a person have this in their hand and using it. And I would swear that dream, that REM moment was in the 70s. There's a lighter I bought here recently. Where did I put it? Where did I put this lighter? There's a lighter I bought recently, and to me, I swear I saw it in a dream months ago. Got the light off in here. I don't want to really turn it back on. So back to the news story now so you could hear what they're saying. So I said my piece about things like financials should be space gapped, not on the World Wide Web, easily accessed by any hacker.
We're going to focus on one apparent hack, the tip of a potential iceberg that is fueling the call for an official inquiry. Daniel Leblanc led the investigation by the Fifth Estate and Radio-Canada. He shows us why it is already generating outrage.
Account numbers, passwords, and schemes used to steal from the public purse are all clicks away on the dark web. Scammers keep on finding new ways to defraud the Canada Revenue Agency. The Fifth Estate Radio-Canada investigation has found that fraudsters have been duping the CRA for millions. 100% success, claims one scammer.
Obviously, the door is open.
State and Radio-Canada. He shows us why it is already generating outrage.
Account numbers, passwords, and schemes used to steal from the public purse are all clicks away on the dark web. Scammers keep on finding new ways to defraud the Canada Revenue Agency. The Fifth Estate Radio-Canada investigation has found that fraudsters have been duping the CRA for millions. 100% success, claims one scammer.
Obviously, the door is open and some people are infiltrating the system, but CRA does not seem to have found the key to lock the door.
Messages posted online this year at the height of tax season point to a breach of data relating to Canada's leading tax preparer, H&R Block. Using what are called e-file credentials from the company, fraudsters hacked into the CRA accounts of real taxpayers and filed false returns. The agency didn't spot the fraud before it approved $6 million in bogus tax refunds, according to sources. In a statement, H&R Block said the data breach did not occur on its end. Ultimately, who hacked that data and where from remains unknown. But sources say this is just one of the many privacy breaches and bogus payouts that could damage the reputation of Canada's tax collection agency.
We have a trust relationship between taxpayers and CRA.
This expert says the CRA is too soft a target in an age of online filings.
CRA has to tell taxpayers, look, we have a problem, this is happening.
Ottawa reported 113 material privacy breaches at the CRA since 2020. After our investigation, the government admitted it was hit by at least 31,000 breaches, exposing the private data of 62,000 taxpayers. The CRA acknowledges it has wrongly paid out $190 million to scammers over the last 4 years, most of it in 2020. In a statement, it said that as scammers adapt their practices, so does the CRA.
I think the agency has this robust system. We're working hard to...
In a statement...
Yeah, I was denied CERB, though I can prove that my income did drop over 60%. I didn't file tax for 1 year, and that 1 year would prove that from 2016 to 2020, and the difference between 2020 from April to April 2021, my income, my revenue from work dropped well over 60%. And I was denied CERB by someone that sounded on the phone, someone that might be a sexual influencer. I don't know, I'm just saying it sounds like that to me. There's a certain voice that those sexual influencers use. And there's a certain voice that the people that have been influenced by the sexual influencers use. They try to imitate someone, some people, thinking that's the culture of those people, when in fact, what they're imitating is a rumor based on assault that happened to certain people when they were toddlers around short adults that were in their 50s and older.
It said that as scammers adapt their practices, so does the CRA.
I think the agency has this robust system. We're working hard to improve this system all the time, and we have this capacity to detect, to block.
But that's not good enough, says the opposition.
In the latest scandal to hit the Canada Revenue Agency, over 60,000 taxpayers had their personal private information hacked. Over $190 million have been improperly paid to scam artists because of privacy breaches at Revenue Canada.
And now the NDP is calling for a parliamentary inquiry into the mishandling of tax fraud cases at the CRA.
So Danielle, your story is getting obviously a lot of attention, but there's still a whole bunch of unanswered questions here.
Yeah, that's right. The government will not even talk about the breach involving H&R Block credentials. They're citing privacy rules. It remains unknown, for example, why the CRA paid out refunds to people using fake addresses, or why they didn't detect the fact that fraudsters were using the same bank account to get refunds on behalf of unrelated taxpayers. It's also not clear why so many privacy breaches went unreported for so long. And many taxpayers who say they were the victims of this type of fraud are now reaching out to us. They are frustrated at the way they've been treated by the CRA and the months they've wasted trying to clean up their tax files.
No doubt. Danielle LeBlanc, thank you. Finally, after more than a week of ballot counting, tonight a winner has emerged in BC's provincial election. The NDP is poised to form a majority government pending the results of a recount. But as Yasmin Renea explains, the Conservative surge in this tight vote is sending a strong message.
It was almost election night deja vu as thousands of absentee ballots were counted Monday.
It is unusual for a race to be this close in this many ways.
The NDP now elected in 47 ridings, the Conservatives elected in 44, and the Greens have been elected in 2.
That suggests that something is shifting in the province with regard to the electorate.
It was a razor-thin race, punctuated by small leads in key ridings like Surrey,
No
where
Liberal
absentee
vote at
ballots
all?
pulled the NDP ahead by just a handful of votes. In the months leading up to the election, the BC Conservatives, a party that had been relegated to the political outskirts for almost half a century, made a dramatic resurgence that experts say was partly driven by the popularity of the federal Conservative Party.
Obviously, we're disappointed to not form government in British Columbia, but I think that voters sent a very clear message.
A lot of
change.
Liberal votes went to NDP, it seems.
Throughout the election campaign, NDP leader David Eby had been battling public anger towards his government over cost of living, public safety, and a healthcare system in crisis. The BC Conservatives focused on populist policies like lower taxes
There's a UK
and
flag
getting
on the
tougher
BC
drug
flag.
use and crime.
He spoke
The
to the
UK
frustrations
flag's on the
of a lot of
BC
British
flag. The only
Columbians.
UK we care about
Eby
is
committing
AI
on
here.
election night to making changes.
We need to support people with the costs of daily life. We need to make life more affordable.
The Middle
more
East
affordable
of
for
North
everyone.
America was thefted
And we
from
need to make
by
communities
Nazi
safe
Zionists.
for
That's what
everybody.
we know.
And we will do these things.
Eby will hold a news conference Tuesday. In the meantime, he says
Mike
the
Eby,
province's
Saint
lieutenant
Mike.
governor has asked him to form the next government, vowing to deliver for British
Eby.
Columbians. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
And people in Saskatchewan are choosing their next provincial government tonight. Polling stations are now
Odd to
closed
talk about
and the
a forgery
hand counting of ballots
when they were talking
has
about the name
begun.
Eby.
Will people choose to re-elect
Forgery
the
that
Saskatchewan
went on
Party
related to
for the fifth
Kenny
straight
Kasha.
time, or will the
Other
NDP
people
surge to victory? Alexander
being
Silverman
misled.
is at the
A
Saskatchewan
United
Party
States
headquarters
education
in
system
Regina. So Alexander,
worldwide.
what are you seeing in the results so far?
Well, Adrian, those results have just really started to pick up in the last 10-15 minutes or so after an incredibly slow start, a really long wait for the count. Now, we are seeing Scott Moe and the Saskatchewan Party off to a lead. They are leading or elected in 32 ridings. Compare that to 25 ridings for the NDP. Now, if Moe and the Saskatchewan Party win a fifth straight government, that'll be the first time a party wins 5 straight elections since the Tommy Douglas era. But the NDP has picked up momentum. A win for them would be a major turnaround for the party. Scott Moe kicked off his campaign with high hopes. His Saskatchewan Party promising voters to stay the course as the only party in government since 2007.
Our record is one that is built and focused on growth and all of the benefits that can come from that growth.
Mo and his team largely campaigned on the economy, promising to build new schools and hire more healthcare workers. All of this while also cutting income taxes.
We have a plan for a strong economy and a plan for a brighter future.
Yeah, income tax needs to be cut.
Mo tried to contrast his party with the NDP's time in government.
Income finance fee needs to be cut.
Ago.
It's a record of decline, loss, and closure.
But the NDP's popularity surged under leader Carla Beck.
There's a feeling of change in the air in Saskatchewan.
Community financing
The former
fee.
social worker has tried to win support from people frustrated by the current government.
Illegally
Her
high.
campaign focused on the cost of living, education, and healthcare, and lately trying to sway voters in rural ridings, the heart of the Saskatchewan party base.
Our message is not just for urban Saskatchewan. It's not just for, a select few voters.
That NDP momentum put the Sask party on the defensive, campaigning in areas where the party has won comfortably in the past.
So, Alexander, you mentioned that the vote is coming in really slowly. Obviously, there's a reason for that.
That's right, Adrian. The reason behind that is Saskatchewan isn't using electronic vote tabulators. All of the ballots in this election are being counted by hand.
That's what they're freaking. That's more secure. That's the only way voting is secure.
Mo said if the ballots are cast by hand, they should be counted by hand too.
Exactly. That's the only way voting for governance is secure. It's the only way it's fully secure. All the counted ballots are kept until the freaking government is freaking terminated. So they can always review the ballots and count it. You can't freaking fudge. You can't freaking fudge actual stuff. Digital numbers you could change and no one would know it.
Election defeat to Susan Holt's Liberal Party. Former provincial
digital numbers encoded on a machine like these.
As interim Tory leader, Savoy won his
you could change it and no one would know it.
34 votes.
But if you count manually,
this was a bittersweet moment tonight for U.S.
and it's
President
kept
Joe Biden.
on lock and key for evidence of the counting,
Biden exiting polling
that's the
booth in
most
Delaware
secure
after
voting.
passing an early ballot in the presidential election, a ballot he wanted to be on just a few short months ago.
All this technological, binary encoded microchip manufactured computer voting system, that's just making cash for the petroleum industry and the mining industry. It was not needed. This was set out of the ghost of America, out of my mouth, between 1990 and 1992, common era, when the freaking sexual predator came to the freaking school and the police wanted to assess if this is a sexual predator or my uncle, and he kept on saying he's my uncle and he's not. And I told many people he's not my uncle. As far as I know, I don't trust him since the ski accident. I can't remember if that stuff ever happened, but he's the one I don't trust. He's the one I suspect. Freaking tall sill, 3-to-leaf drive. Not my uncle. And at that school at the time, the police in Toronto in the early 90s were saying there's 50-year-olds, the age I am right now, if I shave my beard. Even a few years ago when I was driving Lyft and Uber, people were saying I look 18 that didn't know me. I'm 20. So the police back in the 1990s that were looking for sexual predators were saying back then there were 50-year-olds going to the school that I went, where I was just about almost 20, claiming to be freaking 16, trying to pick up girls that were 16. Like Sergeant Major McIntyre that said, this is not the guy that sexually assaulted my daughter or family member. There are many Sergeant Major McIntyres. WWE, man. WWE. You know a lot of the charity work they do for disabled people? WWE. Astro Boy. Come back. Too much transphobia? We don't want no transgenderism, and that's the fact.
A lot, obviously, has changed since then.
Freaking Catholic Church pushed so much transphobia of astronomy. That's the problem. Worldwide, scientifically, too much transphobia where it's related to astronomy? Why isn't there no scientific back push about freaking flat Earth? Why can't NASA or some agency assemble something to say, isn't flat Earth is so foolishness? That should be freaking seen as hate speech. Flat Earth. Not Orange Shirt Day. Flat Earthers. This boy I was supposed to freaking do astronomy with the last year. When I met him last year, from past, we were supposed to do astronomy. It seemed over the last 25 years, they've been putting in his head, flat Earth is what it is. They don't even teach math at the school in Peterborough, I was told, but this high school in Peterborough. They don't teach math properly. They're trying to diseducate, miseducate most of the students that live in North America.
Including the tone of the campaign. Donald Trump's New York rally yesterday continues to be widely condemned for its hateful rhetoric. Katie Simpson now on the impact it's having in the final day.
I wonder if Donald Trump's rhetoric was really hateful. This is one thing I do not like the United States news media for. Donald Trump? Yeah, he went to Epstein's island, it said. How many times did he go? He said he'd release the Epstein list if he became president again. I hope if he becomes president, he releases that Epstein list. Donald Trump admittedly had said he went to the Epstein Island, and he said there is a cesspool going on there. It needs to be investigated. Instead of the FBI investigating what the president said about the term cesspool, which means, as far as I know, cesspool means a possibility that adults are preying predatory sexually against toddlers and children. That's what I know the term cesspool to mean. Cesspool, something sexual bad going on. Very bad sexually. The fact that Donald Trump said there's a cesspool going on at Epstein's island that should be investigated, and instead of the FBI or some investigative reporter trying to get on Epstein's island and investigate and document what's going on, they lambaste Trump. Yeah, Trump may be a womanizer, but it's adults. Older women, usually in their 30s and 40s. When he was younger, probably they were younger. But he's not going out there freaking looking for toddlers like creepy Biden was. And Biden's granddaughter said. And Biden did many times. I don't know if Biden is suffering from memory loss when he was doing those things, when he was freaking getting elected to be the president of the United States. But Biden was doing some pretty creepy stuff to toddlers many times before he got elected. He still got elected and no one talked about that. The United States is run by a deep state immortal sex cult, which seems to be linked to Nazism and Zionism. I'm just saying what I see, assessing what I see in the news going the last 2 years and what the ghost told me from last year, October 15th. I'm just going by, I know in the 90s I told Obi-Wan that Netanyahu is the Antichrist. Trust me on that. Netanyahu is the Antichrist. And how I've seen him talk the last years and seen him in the eyes, he is the Antichrist. We were talking about how Yasser Arafat and Ehud Barak, I guess, at the time, or Sharon Peres was trying to broker peace between the Palestinian and the Israelite people. Most Palestinians are Israelite descent, Semitic descent. A lot of them are. Same with Arabs and North Africans. But the Zionists don't want you to know that. The Zionists seem to be European, Eurocentric. Probably not even Semitic descent. Using the word anti-Semite to confuse people that don't know what Semite means. Sem, the son of Shem. Shem, descendants of Sem. Shem became Semite in modern English because of a language mistranslation. But it is what it is. Semite means descendant of Shem, one of Noah's sons. Therefore, Israelites' ancestor. Therefore, the IDF Zionists are murdering Israelite descent people just because they identify as Palestinian, Arabian, or African.
Days of the race.
On the defensive, Donald Trump taking aim yet again at his critics.
He's Hitler. And then they say he's a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm the opposite of a Nazi.
As his allies try to convince American voters
He's an
to
anti-Nazi?
his racist and sexist rally.
I think we need to all get off
He's
our
an
high horses
anti-Nazi.
and acknowledge that a bad joke
Just
was
like-
told. I think that we have to...
An anti-Nazi, A-N-T-I, opposite Nazi, the whole Commonwealth, United Kingdom, UK, was opposite the Nazis when we liberated North Africa, and then Europe, and then the sneaky little Nazis that escaped persecution ended up in the Levant, killing Israelites that end up escaping from the Levant and coming to live in New York, Montreal, Toronto, Chicago, etc., 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 forming so many various groups in the Americas and other countries they go to, while many high-level Jewish rabbis were stating Zionism is not Jewish. It is not the fulfillment of prophecy. It's suspected to sound like another version of the Nazism. One coin, two sides. National Alimony, Socialist Party. National. Right? They're nationalizing one language, one religion. Zionist, Socialist, Party. It's the last letter of party used there. The last letter, I. Nazi, Party. They spell party with an I in French. Alameen, that means German. Socialist, Party, oligarch, nationalizing. The same oligarchs are the same ones that started the Nazis and the Zionists to fool the world.
Stop getting so offended at every little thing in the United States of America.
Trump's running mate says he didn't see the comedy set in question, even as his campaign says the jokes do not represent the Republican ticket.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
But there was no condemnation of Trump advisor Stephen Miller's nationalist rhetoric.
Puerto Rico is not a floating island of garbage. Neither is Cuba or Jamaica or any of the Caribbean countries where West Indians live that were pushed off the continent by white Yankee. The only way to make America great again is by telling pre-Columbian history, starting with the Louisa woman, and especially the Olmec, the premier culture of North America.
America is for Americans and Americans only.
Or distance from insults hurled at Kamala Harris.
As the first Samoan Malaysian low IQ former California prosecutor, she is the devil, whoever screamed that out.
Puerto Rican and Latino leaders across the U.S. held protests in multiple states, including battleground Pennsylvania, home to hundreds of thousands of Puerto Rican and Latino voters.
Enough is enough, folks. I've had it. I hope that you don't forget it, because I won't forget.
Harris called Trump's rally nonsense, accusing him of stoking fear.
Donald Trump spends full time trying to have Americans point their finger at each other. Fans the fuel of hate and division.
Trump's campaign is openly exploiting racism to its advantage, according to this political science professor.
It's built on an assumption that...
That's one of the troublesome words in English we wanted frickin' talked about. I was in a group called Leaders in Action. Government cut their funding in 1997. In our impression, my impression, is because we were talking about cannabis, marijuana, and how the media makes it seem like stupid joke when it's good for people's health. Looking back at it, maybe they cut the funding because they're worried about me. I don't know. But one thing I do know, the leaders in action, people in leaders in action, looking back at it, many of them older than me and intelligent at English, better than me at English because their first or second or third language was English, as opposed to my sixth or seventh or more being English. Is that the word racism is being used in English to keep people in a psychological mental hold. Right now, it's the election race. Right? Election competition. Right now, it's the election race. The election competition in the United States of America. Are you telling me no one is enthusiastic about it or showing enthusiasm for who they're going to vote? A violinist is someone that's enthusiastic about a violin or plays a violin. Pianist, same thing. So humanity speaking English is in a psychological mental hold that is hard to break, a forever battle because of the word race, black and white, in English, coupled with a few other words that keep humanity on a downward cycle because of the psychology associated to the word race in English. Does race always mean competition? Every day of the week, race means competition. Psychologically, in your head, your brain knows that. Yet, half the time of the year, people use the term, you're racist, to say you're discriminating against their culture or ethnicity or tribe or family, instead of saying you're discriminating against me. Most times I hear someone say you're racist, I sit there and hear, wait, the person didn't say anything discriminatory against the person that said you're racist. It seems that the person said you're racist or you're anti-Semite said that term to stop the person speaking, to hush them up, as they're using English, which shouldn't be used in English. Censorship. That word should not exist in English. Censorship. Not the way it's used. Censorship should not mean hush up someone. Seems the Canadian Liberal government, that's what they want to do to people like me and my family members and my female family members that went through the same thing that I did as a toddler. They want to hush us up so we can never tell our story. While the male sexual predators, strong, fully not disabled at all, jocks, can play football, American football, and rugby any day of the week, push their sexual influencer thing on us with their transgender agenda, while they make fun of our astronomy transit agenda. They push transphobia about astronomy while pushing transgenderism to eradicate us. Race-ism means enthusiasm for the race or competition. And if you're using it to mean ethnicity, it still means enthusiasm for the human race, ethnicity, and species, psychologically.
That, well, if we feel this way, then surely lots of other people feel this way as well.
Harris is expected to highlight racist attacks in her major speech Tuesday, delivered in the same spot Trump rallied.
So listen, Harris is expected to highlight racist attacks. Enthusiastic about the competition? Psychologically, that's what the brain is thinking. But then news media tells you to think it means discrimination. But your brain is psychologically thinking it means that. And that's the psychological hold everybody in English is in, speaking English. And they don't even realize it. They get so bent out of shape for that term race, racist, racism. And they put a fire on and get riled up instead of sitting back and saying, did a person really say something that discriminated against me specifically? Or did someone just use that word to stop the conversation that was going on? Because it was important to have. That's what I wonder. Do people use the terms racist and anti-Semitism to stop someone's point of conversation? Because if the person said you're discriminating, you know they're talking about discrimination. But if the person said they're racist, you don't know if psychologically they're just trying to cut someone off of a conversation.
His supporters on January 6th. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
In this country, Pierre Poilievre says he has a plan to boost construction of new homes if conservatives are elected to form the next government. He says they will scrap the GST on housing units that
should never be on housing music. Goods and service tax?
Reaction to the plan and the politics surrounding it.
A domicile that a family lives is not a goods or service. It's a right. It's an inalienable natural right. It's not someone making a freaking Lamborghini. Goods and service tax. Which probably includes luxury tax because it's so expensive. It's not somebody making a freaking jewelry that people don't need. Luxury tax, goods and services. Food should not have no good and service tax. That's basic needs. Goods and services are things that people want, not need. Everything people need, you need water, no sales tax. You need food, no sales tax. You need a house, no sales tax. You need your first house, no sales tax. Cottage, migrant. Our custom in America was migratory. People migrate out of the system, out of the climate they cannot take to another climate. When winter comes, certain people can't take that climate. They migrate. Still up till today, over the last 50 years of this craziness has been going on, there's still American Indians that still migrate. A lot of the migrant farmers that are called black or American or African American are American indigenous. And our culture, we've always been migrating. Corn came from South America and migrated all the way this far north. It hasn't reached to the Arctic yet because it's not warm enough. Migration in the Americas was north and south annually out of climate zones during the change of winter and spring and fall. Whereas migration across Asia is east and west and doesn't seem to be related to seasonal climate change at all. Seasonal climate change happens 4 times a year in temperate zones.
A meal together in a brand new home. This family just moved to an Ottawa suburb. The price tag for this house, nearly $700,000.
I definitely support putting more money in the genes of new homes.
Interesting. Hi,
Dad, Christian
Donna.
Farquhar works in home construction. He's seen firsthand how the price of building has gone up.
Yeah, it shouldn't have gone up, man.
Almost double.
Housing prices, this thing called inflation. Has the earth gotten any bigger in the last 40, 50 years? I don't see 3 times the Earth's space worldwide. That house should only be $250,000 still. You see, the financiers use bogus math. I wouldn't call it math. The financiers use bogus math to steal cash from people in this social credit score system that was developed by the Bank of America, which was started by an Italian immigrant that was living in poverty when he was young. The social credit score that we have, China is testing it for the Western financial institutes. This is something that I was homeschooled in to remember in the 70s after what happened to our family, brutalized by what some call the immortal sex cult, the deep state government that is trying to push the New World Order. To my recollection, our family, after all that craziness happened, 3 years after at least, 1978, 3 years passed, 1981 Common Era, I'm pretty sure we sat down in this house right here and watched Brave New World, because that is not what we want the world to be. We don't want the world to be like the Brave New World movie, where no one is married, no one has families, and everybody has sexual intercourse with a different person every single day of the week. My recollection of back then is that the fake uncle, the person that kidnapped our family, messed up our family, and messed up our ID, was grooming my older cousin to be like Tomakin in that movie, or the jingle maker in that movie. While me, in that movie, I am the underdeveloped one that they said had the alcohol drop into his development case when he was growing, incubating from birth, no pregnancy, not in a woman's stomach, birthed in a chamber like in Matrix movie. Watch 1981's Brave New World if you want to understand the trap the world has been in since before I was born, a planned trap that existed before I was born. Because us 3 little birds, we've been in the social credit trap for well over 40 years. But they want to blame it on China, when we know China is just testing that technology for the Western financial system, the socialist. Because China had the social revolution, so they are ruled by the national socialist oligarchs.
What we used to pay for pavers alone in Interlock, and even wood, everything's gone up, everything's skyrocketed because of this.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he has a plan to fix it. He wants to remove the federal sales tax on any brand new homes that cost less than $1 million.
Common sense conservatives will stop giving the money to bureaucrats, instead leave it in the pockets of home builders.
That's what it was always supposed to be, man. Power to the people, not to the bureaucrats.
It's a pitch home builders say would cut the price of a new home by tens of thousands of dollars and encourage construction.
It's exactly the kind of thing we need to help new and young Canadians be able to afford houses, and in turn so that we can be able to build them.
To pay for the GST tax cut, the Conservatives say if elected, they plan to get rid of 2 federal programs. Billions of dollars Ottawa is giving municipalities to change zoning and fast-track housing developments, and billions more to provinces and territories to build infrastructure those homes will need, like sewers and water.
A lot of the red tape has been completely cut to make it easier and faster to build homes. If you want to now go back to municipalities and pull that money out, that would make no sense.
Canada's housing minister accused the Conservatives of borrowing a page from his playbook. The Liberal government has already removed the GST on the construction of new rental properties, and Sean Fraser did not rule out doing the same for new homes. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Canadian Medical Association wants employers to stop asking for sick notes. Doctors say it is a waste of time and important resources. And as Mike Crawley tells us, they say eliminating the notes would take a big burden off the healthcare system.
As a busy family physician with hundreds of patients, Dr. Nav Prasad thinks there are better uses of his medical expertise than writing sick notes.
Even though each sick note doesn't take a very long
a lot of
time to
companies
write,
had it mandatory.
just a few sentences usually, or one sentence typed into an electronic health record, there usually is an unnecessary interaction with the patient. The patient has to spend time contacting the physician, sometimes booking an appointment that could be booked by someone who really needs care.
The Canadian Medical Association estimates that family
Stupid
doctors
sick note
spend
thing.
1.5 million hours each year writing sick notes, the equivalent of 5 million patient visits.
It's actually a ridiculous use of a healthcare provider's time.
Now the CMA is calling on employers to stop requiring sick notes
Just because
for
employers don't want to
short-term
pay
minor illnesses
people when
such
they're
as
sick.
colds.
Canadians can relate to how frustrating it is when an employer asks you to go see a doctor when you don't need to see the doctor. You need to sleep, rest, get better so you can get back to work.
So, what do employees think about sick notes?
I had slipped on ice, so I'm in pain physically. The last thing I want to do is walk to a doctor's office.
Problem is trying to get through a doctor's facility, a physician, to sign off on it.
The group that represents small business in Canada says most of its members don't demand sick notes for routine illness, but they do want recourse if a worker might be abusing the system.
For example, if somebody is consistently sick on a Friday, it's like every third Friday, they for some reason are sick, right? You start to wonder, is this really the case, right?
Among the provinces, Nova Scotia led
that's
the way
problem.
last
People
year,
freaking
banning
calling
employers
sick
from
for
demanding
freaking
sick
taking
notes
a trip
for
or
illnesses
freaking
of up to 5 days.
have an event and
And
not be
just
honest
this
about
month,
it.
both Ontario and Quebec passed legislation banning the practice, but only for illnesses of 3 days or fewer. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
A record number of Canadians are turning to food banks for help.
In the past, an individual person might get a full box of cereal, and now that's been cut back to a 4-cup serving.
Now, some say food banks are at risk of collapse. More fallout from the Rogers price hike as the NDP calls on the government to take action.
Will the Liberals have the courage to do it? Yes or no?
And an actor's lookalikes get a sweet surprise. We're back in 2. And that is forcing some food banks to cut back.
Okay, so you did come back with food bank. The term food bank, I think, is related or comes from the term local market or farmers market. And there used to be a system like the Commonwealth system. My auntie that lives in Britain, the Commonwealth system was set up so that people get their basic needs at the end of the year. A Commonwealth, they're sharing a Commonwealth for all people of the same nation, all people that are citizens. So they get a bag of wheat, bag of rice, and a certain amount of thing for a year, salt and whatever, I can't remember. Up here in Canada, we used to have the same thing. There used to be milk delivered, and the bottles used to be returned and fully recycled, fully washed and reused. And then somewhere along the line, back then, we even used to take our own bags to the store to get food and that, and fill up our bag and leave it. And then somewhere along the line, OPEC took over the world, petroleum became in, OPEC mandated its mandates in 72 or 73, The news says 72. I remember it as 73. Some people say there's a whole bunch of time warps and whatever. But it was mandated, it seems like the grocery companies, I wouldn't be surprised if the petrol lobbyists did this, that people have to start using the plastic bag at the grocery stores. And eventually, plastic bag led to a lot of pollution that wouldn't have even existed, because before people always used to carry their own bag. You see, part of the problem was people that looked like me used to get accused for stealing, even though we did not back then. And eventually the thing got time over worse, because there's people like me that remember how it was in the Americas before OPEC took over the world and started pushing its control of the world through finance and manipulation of lobbyists in the media. If the system had stayed how it should have, right now people would be taking their bag. They would be used to it because from birth they've been just like bargain heralds. You bring your bag to the store, you go shopping, they look through your bag, you empty out your bag at the counter, and they charge you for all your stuff that you shopped in the bag, and then you go through the turnstiles to exit the place. Less waste. But you see, I think the financiers of the petroleum had decided to pile up the petroleum in spots and have people forget, because they think people have short memories, and then go explore, look for the new places and do it all over again and then again. That's the world they wanted. They brainwashed toddlers to get a world like that, and that's the world we're in now. Deep state, immortal, sex cult controlled world, pushing the new world order by the World Economic Forum.
Cash-strapped Canadians are leaning on food banks like never before, according to the latest numbers, and that is forcing some food banks to cut back on how much they offer each person. Heather Gillis shows us the tough choices being made in some Atlantic provinces.
Fresh moose stew, a welcome addition to the food hampers at the Bridges to Hope Food Bank in St. John's.
Right, these people lucky.
Demand
Fresh
here
moose
is
stew.
Up. Bridges to Hope fed 13,000 people last year. This year, on track to help 30% more. It's forcing them to cut back on some hamper items.
In the past, an individual person might get a full box of cereal, and now that's been cut back to a 4-cup serving per person.
A cup of instant coffee now only filled to 3/4 of one. In rural Newfoundland, there's another barrier: access to the food bank itself.
For a lot of people, they either don't have transportation or they have a limited budget for gas and stuff, especially in an area with no public transportation. So we've been hearing from people that usually they stretch their trips to the food bank a little bit further.
And it's all donated. Demand is also surging at this Nova Scotia food bank. It means cutbacks here, too.
We're not buying juice anymore. We're not buying, like, canned turkey, ham. We do buy canned tuna.
According to Food Bank Canada's latest count, visits across the country were up by 6% for the year that ended in March. 2 million people in Canada went to a food bank that month. That's nearly doubled in 5 years.
So food banks are not designed to support this type of rapid increase in such a short period of time. And as a result, what we're seeing is many are buckling under the strain.
Meanwhile, staff at food banks in Newfoundland and Labrador and Nova Scotia are bracing for the colder months ahead as heating bills stretch budgets and demand rises even further. They're calling on the federal government for help fast. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's. Justin Trudeau is facing a deadline to support the Bloc Québécois' proposed increase in pensions or risk an early election.
It's bad economics, it's an even worse social policy.
About that's Andrew Chang.
I think that is where I am stopping it for the evening here. and leaving it. Actually, wait a minute. Let me see. I might as well watch my space news. Yeah, it was. Oh, I guess I'm not watching my space news. I guess it's a separate one. Seems like the freaking Ghost in the Machine freaking ended my post and as soon as I said space news.